What's up, everybody? Sorry for a slight delay there, but we are back with day 5 of Answer Record Week 3. And last time I promised you a clear, no questions asked, absolutely straightforward answer record, not like that kind of crazy, weird Sally stuff, which wasn't necessarily really an answer record. So today we got a classic record and a pretty lesser-known response. And the classic record is actually, practically the classic record of classic records. I'm talking about Run DMC, Sucker MC's Crush Groove number 1. This is the original, came out in 1983 on Profile Records, and really it's the B-side, although strictly, technically speaking, it's just the second song also on the A-side, but really it's the B-side, because the B-side is actually just instrumentals for both songs, to It's Like That, which was kind of their big, sort of more messagey hit, not quite Hard Times, but that kind of thing. But what really took off much larger than that was Sucker MC. It has gone down as probably the number 1 song, not their biggest song commercially, because that would be something like, Walk This Way with Aerosmith, but in hip-hop circles, it is really the definitive Run DMC song with the pure stripped-down beats, the absolutely classic, memorable lines. 2 years ago, a friend of mine. Like, even if you're not that familiar with the song, you might know the lyrics. That's just kind of how rooted into hip-hop history it is. The Crush Groove thing is where the movie Crush Groove got its title from. And why they call this Crush Groove, this is Crush Groove 1, actually on their next couple singles they have Crush Groove 2, 3, and 4, it's because the band Orange Crush, which was Larry Smith's band, which was, a big Run DMC producer and also a Houdini producer and all that, that was his band, and so they actually had a single themselves, which is okay. It's got more of like a, like a singer on it and everything, but it's kind of well known for being sampled a lot. But anyway, this doesn't sample that record. This is just other instrumentals by Orange Crush. And again, this is pure stripped down, hardcore, just drum beats, programmed drums, hand claps. Like, that's about it. There's no keyboards, there's no piano, there's no nothing. As opposed to like Orange Crush's actual album, again, which is a little bit more instrumentally, this is super stripped down, and that's what really this became famous for. Certainly other artists have done it, but they really pretty much did it first, Run DMC, to just go hard over plain, stripped down, raw beats. Then years later, once you got, Houdini doing like Big Mouth, it started to become another, a little bit passé. But this was just like stunning when Run DMC did it at first. Younger heads might even be more familiar with the Wu-Tang cover of Sucker MCs, where they did it like in the late 90s, and they just basically revamped, the instrumental slightly. Again, there's not that much to revamp, and kind of just put their own spin on the lyrics, but basically covered all the same lyrics. But hopefully you're familiar with the original, and not just the Wu-Tang version. So I'm not even going to play clips of Sucker MCs, 1, because you should know it, and 2, you don't need to hear it from me, it's everywhere, and 3, because I get enough of a hard time with YouTube's destroyed copyright system. So let's just skip right over it. Sucker MCs, and if you don't, you can find it, but you know it. And so now you're probably thinking, oh, okay, he's doing the answer record to Sucker MCs. Obviously, he's going to do Sucker DJs by Dimples D, female rapper, produced by Marley Marl, one of his earliest projects, which is very obvious. Again, it's the whole female rapper responding to the male rapper hit record. In this case, instead of talking about Sucker MCs, and by the way, what Sucker MC is about is 100% straightforward. They're just talking about Sucker MCs. Like, every hip-hop song over the next 10 years was about sort of ubiquitous Sucker MCs. It really kind of came from this, although other MCs had talked about generic MCs in the past, like sort of battle rhymes not directed at anyone specifically on their record. That had been done before, but this was the one to really target it and to label it as Sucker MCs. And so then obviously her thing is just to talk about Sucker DJs. DJs aren't so great, and of course she's saying Marley Marl, her DJ, was terrific. But that's not what we're talking about, because 1, it's too obvious, and most of you guys are probably already familiar with it. 2, I already did the blog about it, because I was focusing on this particular kind of obscure foreign remix that came out years later. So I already kind of covered that, so we're not doing Sucker DJs. We're doing another answer record to Sucker MCs. Romeo and the Ever-Lovin' MCs, we're not Sucker MCs. So this one is a bit more obscure, but it's kind of interesting. DJ Romeo is not just some nobody who never did anything else. The Ever-Lovin' MCs are Keith KD and El Rahim. As far as I know, they actually haven't done anything else. But Romeo went on to have a pretty big name for himself. You might know him. Actually, Uncut did a big story on him a couple years ago, because he had a group called Romeo and Rhyme, where it was him and an MC called Master Rhyme, and they did a bunch of diss records, well, at least a couple diss records, directed at NWA, and they fired back, and they had a whole kind of, back and forth diss war with Eazy-E and everything. So you might remember that. So this is the same DJ Romeo, but this is before Master Rhyme. This is back in the early 80s. Because, while I've actually recently talked about sort of the distinction between diss records and answer records, this is both. This is the Ever-Lovin' MCs dissing pretty hardcore for, the early 80s. Run DMC really just kind of going at them. The premise here, as they say in their song, which seems a little bit implausible to be the actual true story, but who knows? They say they're at a Run DMC concert. We were in the front row. You're going to hear this actually in the clips I'm going to play, but I'll just describe it real quick. And then Run DMC pointed them out and called them sucker MCs, and so that's why they had to make this response record. Sounds like BS to me. Sounds like they just wanted to, jump into the game with a response record to make a name for themselves, which, most answer/diss records were. But fair enough. Who cares? Whatever. It's still kind of fun. The instrumental is not the same as sucker MCs. They definitely add a little more kind of samples and strangeness to it and different elements. And lyrically, they do make some direct references to sucker MCs, like they kind of quote them and then respond to them. And obviously, from the hook and title alone, this is clearly going, responding to sucker MCs. So, it's not as heavy maybe as a response record as some where they use exactly the same instrumental, but they're definitely responding to Run DMC saying, you call us sucker MCs, we're calling you sucker MCs, basically. And again, early 80s, so the disses are pretty kind of soft and generic. The hardest kind of stuff is like calling, Jam Master J, Jam Master Jelly, or whatever it is. Jelly Jam Master, saying stuff like, you're not a chief rocker, you sound like a baby in a stroller. Again, not the kind of more vicious, nasty, serious disses we're used to in a more modern era. But, for the early 80s, just to hear anyone dissing Run DMC at all on a record was pretty novel. So this is We're Not Sucker MCs. And by the way, one kind of cool thing about this is it's sort of a picture cover, except it's also an open hole sleeve. But so you can see, I guess, the artist there on the label, and got the lyrics on the back, which is pretty dope. It's got the instrumental too, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to play a clip of this, of course, in a moment. But before I sign off on this video, you might be noticing this other picture here. This record does have a B-side, the wrestling rap, where they talk about pro wrestling. And again, early 80s, so it's all early 80s references. Some kind of fun references to stuff like Rowdy Roddy Piper and Sergeant Slaughter. And I'm not a wrestling guy at all. All I know Sergeant Slaughter from is from back in the days when I was a kid. I sent away for the G.I. Joe action figure where you couldn't buy it in stores. You can only get the little proof of purchases off the back, and you mailed in like 100 or some crazy number, and you got a little action figure, and it was Sergeant Slaughter, and he just looked like a kind of generic G.I. Joe guy. He was a military theme already, so I guess I could see why they would tie him in with G.I. Joe. He had like a big hat and a whistle. So that's all I really know about Sergeant Slaughter, is he was in G.I. Joe. But before that, he was just a wrestler, and made famous in this pro wrestling song. And so that's kind of it. This is on Lifestream Records, and this is the only rap record on the label. They did do some other stuff, but it's also like pop rock kind of stuff that I know nothing about. This is their only rap record. This is the only record by the Ever-Lovin' MCs, but DJ Romeo, of course, not only did he go on to Romeo and Rhyme, but he also became kind of a big producer, doing a lot of stuff for Coolio, but sort of like kind of all sorts of odds and end projects. He did Scoop and Scrap Lovers, a non-stop single, which was pretty dope. So he's been around. He's still around. He's still, active as a DJ and stuff. So DJ Romeo, kind of a semi-big deal, not quite Run DMC level, but a legitimate artist. And the Ever-Lovin' MCs were his first group. This record actually did come out a little bit late. Sucker MCs 1983. This didn't come out till 1985. So, they didn't exactly strike while the iron was hot with this one. But still, looking back at it now, there's almost like no distinction. But they've heard this like 2 years after Sucker MCs. Does sort of seem like they came out a little bit late.
All the rappers can't stand you, but give you respect. Revenge, you are not sucker MCs. And if you think we're lying, boy, just come against me. 3 years ago, the other Dial and Joe, we even brought tickets just to see that show. Now we were cold chilling, standing in the front row, just bopping to the beat. Then what do you know? A Joe stuck out his finger, pointed deadly at me. Then they both started yelling, "Hey, sucker MCs!" Now let's get things right, let's get things straight. Just because you gotta play your shit and perpetrate, 'cause you're not a cheap rocker. I saw you drink vodka. You keep 4 or 5 quarts inside your locker. Your boy's not a king, he's not a cheap rock roller, but he sounds like a baby being wheeled in a stroller. His voice is always draggy, his toes is always baggy, and that's what makes the duo look saggy. Said duo is until we forgot that clown. He can't mix, he can't scrap, but they still put him down. That suckers always stuck on the meaning of fast stuff. We talking about the brother called Jelly Jam Master. Check it. You might be cold making money off the same concept. Now it's time for someone new to put you both in check. So open up your mind, wipe your glasses to see. So who really cares if you like chicken and greens? It's the moment you all been waiting for. It's All-Star Wrestling. Your toes when you hear the bell go. It's a test for strength, feel for power. When you lose, it's bulls, and when you win, it's holler. Tag team, still cages, and no holds barred. People ranting and running just to see their star. Now if it's Andre the Giant versus Big John Studd, who will fight to the finish for that title of blood?
So there you go, that was DJ Romeo and the Ever-Loving MCs answering and dissing Run DMC. But this is not the end of Answer Record Week 3. I got one more coming up, and I think I saved the best for last. So check it out pretty soon. Day 6 of Answer Record 3. Thanks you guys for watching.